Welcome to Season 2 of Compassionate Cultures, the podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Hemmings, and in this short but powerful season, we're tackling the big topics leading with cultural humility, racism, discrimination, and a deep dive into sexual harassment in the workplace. If you're a leader or HR professional who wants to create a safer, more inclusive environment, you're in the right place. Now, let's get started. Hey, I'm back. It's the Crafting Compassionate Cultures podcast, and I'm Rebecca Hemmings, your host. And if you're new here, welcome. This is where we discuss all things around crafting compassionate cultures. Okay, so we speak a lot about very difficult topics, including anti-racism, sexual harassment, discrimination, unconscious and conscious bias, that type of thing. And we're here to help workplaces to create spaces where people can feel psychologically safe. All right, so we've been on a hiatus. The last episode was recorded in October 2024, and that's because I'd been going hard for almost 2 years recording this wonderful beast, but it is a beast. We got really busy, and I personally just needed to look after myself, so I took a break. So what I want to do in this episode is tell you a little bit about what I've been up to. So this is a bit different to a normal episode. So it's not so much around teaching, but don't worry, that's coming. And also, I want to talk to you about what's coming up in this series and how this series is going to work. All right. So what have we been up to? Well, one of the biggest things that we've been up to is working with a city council and the NHS to create a cultural humility and safety training program. And, we were selected to do this based on our experience with discrimination and anti-racism training, right? And it was something that was quite new to me. And so, I've spoken about cultural humility and safety, so I won't go in any great detail. I've spoken about it in previous episodes, but just to say, it's been such an amazing experience to really embody what it means to be culturally humble and to therefore train others in how to do that. Okay, so just a little bit of insight into what cultural humility and safety is. It's about embarking on a lifelong journey to learn about your culture, your own culture, and other people's cultures, to accept and to continue to learn about systemic discrimination and racism. It's about self-critiquing, so holding yourself accountable, knowing that none of us are perfect human beings. We make mistakes, and when we make mistakes, we want to do better in future. So really what I love about cultural humility and safety is, and the safety aspect is around the psychological safety as well, and kind of keeping people away or reducing levels of systemic racism and discrimination, right? But what I love about it is because it ties in so well with the values that we already hold dear at Strawberry Words, which is around being compassionate, around being respectful, and even when your culture differs to that of others, that you're still accepting that that's just what things are as long as it's legal, right? So we've been involved in that, which has been amazing. Shout out to Sipo and Naomi, who are my partners in crime on that project. We've also been heavily involved with a charity delivering some DEI consultancy work, and I'm really pleased that they now have a DEI statement up on their website, and there's so much more work that's gone into it, but that is kind of like I guess the icing on top of the cake. The cake is still being baked as they work through their organization to ensure that they are being as equitable and inclusive as possible. What else have we been doing? As always, we've been embarking on listening sessions with staff from organizations around their experiences of discrimination and racism. And what can I say, the fact that there's still a need for this, I think, tells you everything. And that's something I'd say to organizations, actually, if you're not doing it already. You don't have to use us, but I'd suggest using an external company to listen to your staff. And how these sessions work is that they're confidential, right? Unless legally I'm obliged to say something, right? So they know that coming in, but they also know that I can be used as a conduit to pass on messages to the organization based on, things that are not going well. And essentially, we know, they know when they come to the session, they're talking about the discrimination and the racism that they face. So they're very insightful, and in these sessions, people do tend to say things that perhaps they wouldn't ordinarily say. And the benefit of those sessions to those individuals is that they have a space. They have a space to discuss the things that are not going so well, the problems that they're facing in a confidential space with an external entity. Okay. As I say, if they want to, they can, go on record with some things, and even then they don't have to say their name. So, yeah, I find that quite, the sessions are not for me, but even as someone facilitating some of those sessions, I do find them quite healing, even for myself. Very humbling, and sometimes very upsetting, if I'm being very honest. I'm still human. But knowing that, and I look after myself, so it's not like I'm just left. But knowing that there's this space for people to talk about these issues is very important, and I know it's welcomed. So yeah, that's another thing we've been up to. Another thing, it's been busy, and this is the reason why there was a break, because there was just so much happening. So we now have our sexual harassment CPD accredited course up online. Woo-hoo-hoo! It's been, a while in the making, and it's been a while since we've had a new CPD accredited course up. So we've got the anti-racism one, we've got microaggressions, and now we have the sexual harassment. Is that what I said? I hope I said sexual harassment. If I didn't, I'm saying sexual harassment. Sometimes I get mixed up. Anyway, perimenopause brain. So yeah, we got that up and running. I'm so pleased. So again, big up Safina Jago, who is the presenter on that course. We spent a lot of time was spent in making sure that we covered the new legislation. So if you're not aware, I'll be talking about this quite a bit. There's some new legislation that's came into play in October 2024. So that was the Worker Protection Act, which basically states that all companies in the UK need to do everything they possibly can to prevent sexual harassment, and if they don't, there's a whole heap of consequences, including a 25% increase in the amount in which organizations are fined. And I'm going to talk to you in future episodes about certain cases that have arisen or have fallen foul to the law with regards to sexual harassment. And so I think it's important to listen to those, because I think sometimes there is an assumption that, everybody knows not to cross the line, right? However, there's some slippery slopes that you wouldn't think would be classed as sexual harassment that are. So we'll talk about that. So on the topic of the Worker Protection Act, we actually have an event coming up. So if you're listening to this in February, March of 2025, on the 11th of March, we have a webinar coming up. It's called Unlocking the Worker Protection Act. So that's where we'll be discovering this new landscape with regards to workplace protection and protecting people from sexual harassment. We're going to talk about what that means for employers, employees, and organizational culture, and what you can do to protect your staff. There is an amazing support package, a free toolkit that comes with that, worth £150. Probably going to forget off the top of my head, but I know we've got policy templates. Look, I can't remember off the top of my head. I wish I'd written this down beforehand. But go look at our website, strawberrywords.co.uk, and you'll see all the information. You don't want to sleep on that. And so, what's next for the podcast? So we're going to keep these short and punchy. There's going to be a wider scope of topics. So we spent a lot of time talking about racism, anti-racism. We're now going to explore discrimination in a wider sense, and part of that comes from a personal place. In that, spent a lot of time exploring what it means to be a Black person in the UK in particular, and that's especially since the murder of George Floyd. You've been on that journey with me if you're a regular listener. You've listened to, all the different areas of this beast known as racism and how it applies to the workplace. And I pushed all that information out there. Again, if you're listening for the first time, there are loads of podcast episodes and blogs on our Strawberry Words website about all of that. But for now what I want to do is I want to explore other areas of discrimination as well. So we will keep talking about racism, but we're also going to talk about other areas. So sexual harassment at the moment is just, it's not going away. And I think about myself as a woman, and I want to also talk about gender discrimination, which in ways I feel like, when I compare it to racism, I feel like sometimes gender discrimination is even more normalized than types of racism. I don't know, I'm still exploring that, but the more I think about it, the more I've had to really question why certain things are normal, why we don't question the way that as women sometimes we're spoken to, words that are used to describe us, as an example. And again, this is important because this is where people fall foul to the law, when they don't realize these things, especially when it comes to the words we use to describe gender and people of different genders. But we'll get into all of that. So yeah, I want to explore different aspects of discrimination. I also want to have more interviews to provide more value. All right, so that's it really. So please, share this episode if it's useful. Well, I don't know if this is useful. This is just telling you what's coming up. But yeah, let's keep this conversation going. And if you have any topics you would like us to cover, then let me know. Get in touch. Again, we've got the website strawberrywords.co.uk. All right, so see you on the next episode.